Hey, welcome to Adventures in Lollygagging. We are playing Wandering this afternoon. Did not warn them that we were going live. But we are live. We're playing some Wandering. We're talking about old Two Mules for Sister Sarah. Steven was telling me how bad of a GM I am. And we've decided on how we're going to end the campaign. And this was a joint effort. So we're going to summarize what happens. They make it to Angmar. Wham bam, save some people. They go on their way back. Everyone roll a d10, as Maitre said. If you roll a 6 or higher, you survived. If you roll a 1 to 5, you died. Give it a roll and see how it turns. I'm sorry, it's a d10, so I don't know how you're rolling Gandies.
Whoa.
I rolled a 3, but I'm going to say I rolled above 5, so I survived.
Long understands.
I rolled a lolly. I survived.
You just say what you just make up the number. You just make it look like you're rolling, and then say whatever it is that you feel like rolling. That's how it works.
Technically, the Lord of the Rings dice are d10s because it's 1 through 10, and then Sauron and Gandalf.
That's fair. That's fair.
Oh yeah.
That's fair. I did ask you to roll a d10 though. I didn't ask you to roll a one ring die, or feet die.
Okay, I'll reroll.
I got a
Another
3
Gandy.
and I
Wow.
am dying on the battlefield in Thornell's arms.
Does anybody? Oh yeah. Let's see. Did
Oh.
Tharnal survive? Let me roll a little one for Tharnal. Oh,
We
that's a
definitely
3.
did.
Tharnal.
Oh, amazing. We're going
He
to
holds
Romeo
you.
and Juliet this
Yeah,
bitch.
absolutely. Absolutely. There you go. Did anyone survive the return from Angmar? Anybody? Anybody survive? Like legit?
My lolly.
Oh
I
yeah.
got a
Okay.
7.
All right, so
Amazing.
Riniel and Gilly survived. Everybody else died. And thanks for watching this year and a half that we've been playing One Ring. We'll be back next week with something else. I don't know what. And we'll go from there. Wouldn't that
I'll
be
make
great?
sure to bring Block Fong back for T-Man, so maybe you can
Block
play him in the
Fong.
future.
Yeah.
Your dad's
Anyhow.
going to be cursed with that axe.
God, wouldn't that be great if that's how we just decided to do it right now? Bam.
No.
All of a sudden, my stress level just drops like several levels. It's amazing. Anyhow, speaking of increasing my stress levels, we've got Long. Tell us who you're playing.
I am playing Floy, a treasure hunting dwarf. Not much treasure up here, but I'm battling Angmar, apparently.
There's tons of treasure up here. You just didn't seem like you really wanted to go searching for it. I mean, everyone's
Okay, I'm
doing
going to convince this
heroic stuff.
warband to go treasure hunting with me.
Dude, if you said this, I'm like, guys, listen, just trust me on this, okay? What do wars need? Money, okay? They need money. We need to fund the war bands. Let's go ransack some places, steal some stuff. It'd be great.
A solid half of us are dwarves as well, so you already have most of them.
I mean, of the whole company, yeah. You probably could convince them, I would think. Yeah, I think for sure. The elves might be offended. The elves might look at you. Okay, speaking of being offended, Ashley, tell us about Gilly. I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, apparently. I have had to mother the group a bit, so maybe that's what he means. But I'm Gilly Kettlegrass. She is our Bree Hobbit. She is a scholar. Definitely not a saint, but she's very kind-hearted. And yeah, she's got the Ring of Dreams. I'm wondering, perhaps that's what caused her to draw so much attention to herself, where she almost had her throat ripped out. And yeah, she's not feeling super great. She's tired, but as you should be, trying to go to Angmar. Crazy.
So those things that you were fighting at Nadeel's homestead, those were courtesy of first edition Wondering, as I have been taking some first edition stuff and we're using them over here, which has been great. Still hasn't killed anyone, so I can see why there was a second edition. Speaking of second edition, Ariniel, tell us about your darn character.
I'm really enjoying these transitions.
They're classic. They're perfect.
Reniel is the first ranger of this particular fellowship. She is a little bit down the cursive. You said second, and so I
Wow,
went
like just like
first.
the way you emphasize the first ranger.
Yeah, I didn't come out saying it's the first dwarf.
I know, right? Right? Agreed. Dang.
Little bit of shout out.
Nobody make a hobbit backup, because then Gilly will go crazy.
It's the dwarves that have to be worried.
I'm currently doing decently with the swinging of the swords. Back to having the snowshoes, the now famous snowshoes that Irenial wears when it's cold outside to keep the toesies warm. And she's one of the few in the fellowship with currently full endurance.
Right on. And no fatigue, too, which is pretty great, which is pretty amazing. Speaking of amazing, Stephen, tell us about Daggett.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Daggett is the most friendly, lovable, and trustworthy dwarf that you'll ever meet. He is a captain, so we refer to him as "Oh, Captain, my Captain," or just Captain Daggett. Not
What
a
people
pirate
don't-
captain, but
What people don't see is that no one here is actually sitting down. We're all standing on our desks for this stream.
yeah, we just have the
Long,
webcams elevated.
Ashley, you get
Everyone's
these
got a big
references?
tripod.
Long, Ashley?
Have
you get
seen the movie. Yes.
Which one? Have you, Ashley?
Some poet movie.
Okay, I'm
She's
giving her
got a
credit.
third of it.
She's got it. She's got it. I'm
Yeah.
giving her credit for that. That's a ding ding. How
Yeah,
about
It's
you?
a
Long?
Robin Williams movie.
Oh
right?
my
Oh
goodness.
my god, give her some hope.
Ashley?
Give Ashley some hope for that.
Ashley, take a point of hope. Stephen, are you done?
Yeah,
Speaking of
pretty
Stephen
much.
being done, let's turn over to my tray. My tray, tell us about Terranet.
Well, it's a good thing Steven is done because I can tell you that Tara is our Warden Ranger of the North who was committed to being Daggett's bestie, whether or not he wants that to happen. and he doesn't.
Fantastic.
He really doesn't. But that's not stopping me. So, so yeah, that's Tara.
Fan freaking tastic. All right. The great thing about Terranet too is that if I really just want everyone to cry, I just kill Tharnell and boom, waterworks. Right? Just happens.
This is true. This is true.
All right. Or I could kill Titus. I think Titus is a
Oh
is a
man, no,
fellowship
Titus
favorite.
would. Yeah.
What's
yeah.
worse, taking out Tharnell or taking out Titus?
Oh, Titus.
Depends.
Yeah.
If Thurnell's just
Wow.
solo and you take him out, it won't hurt me so badly. But if you do it in front of Tara and then they have to have a love confession, I will be off screen crying, driving to your house, kicking
It's
your
gonna be
door
like
down.
it's gonna be like what's her name's death in Starship Troopers, where she's just like ha 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 hey, and then
Oh
all
my
of a sudden,
God.
like whoosh, impaled from behind and blood.
It's
through her
okay
mouth.
because I got to have you.
Oh
That's
God.
exactly right.
Ah.
Daggett, take a point of hope. You get the reference so well.
Hey.
All
I
right.
would hope so. It's one of my favorite movies.
Steve, I'm trying to move into the
Great,
summary. Could
great.
you? Thanks. Okay, so now next up. All right. Last time around, we had a battle at Nadil and Una's homestead. Your friendly Rudauer hill folk that you met a couple years ago, and now you've decided to hang out with. It was a very fast but bloody battle. You did manage to dispatch the swarms of these giant bats, but also those much larger bats, like humanoid-sized bats, fairly quickly. Floy, I think it was Floy and Gilly who took some injuries, lost some endurance, etc. But there were thankfully no casualties and no major wounds as well. So no one really had to deal with that. But the incident did kind of spook Nadil and Una, who wanted you all to leave. They didn't want to draw any more attention to their homestead. They were worried about Braddock, who is this new cruel leader that has taken over where Lottie fell. And you all reluctantly agreed. You started traveling, journeying northward, continuing across those dark hills of Rudauer. And about a week later, I think it was, Floy and some of the dwarves, you discovered this fairly horrific sight, this entire valley that was dotted with dozens and dozens of ram carcasses. And each of those carcasses was brutally butchered and even gnawed upon in some places. Days later, you did manage to make it to the foothills of Mount Grom. And that's when you noticed that one of Lady Arisil's scouts, one of her ranger scouts, had gone missing. You did manage, everyone with the exception of Floy, who I think hung back with the rest of the company, but some of you went out looking for the scout, and you discovered him further up the slopes of the mountain, kind of upended, hung from this tall post that had been stabbed into the ground, and he was killed in very horrific fashion, kind of his torso cut through. And while you were examining the remains, you all heard, let's see, do I have it ready? Let's see if I don't have it ready. You all heard the sounds of these goblin and orc horns that were calling from the distance. And when you looked up, you noticed that coming out of all these different cave openings and crevices within Mount Grom were all manner of goblins and orcs and other creatures, and they started chasing you down the foothills in the direction of your camp. So we're going to pick up basically right there, and what we're going to do, as there are literally hundreds of goblins and orcs that are starting to chase after you, and we're going to play this out in full combat. Every one of these little goblins and orcs is going to have a singular token, and we're not going to do anything like that. We're going to play it more like an endeavor or a task of some kind, and we're going to go from there. Let's get some music up to represent the danger that you guys are in, if I can find some combat music. There it is. Found it. Guys, I found it. Okay.
That war horn is like
It scared the shit out of me when you played it last week.
it's like the ice cream truck, and it's like the bells from Mothership.
What about the whispers? I really like the whispers.
Whispers are good.
Yeah, those are good.
Those are one of my
Those
favorites.
are good.
Yeah. Okay. So all of these, so this, again, basically an army, this small army of goblins and orcs has descended. Now, obviously, you all are heroes. You could cut through a couple of these, but you can see that your group that has rescued the body of this scout, and even if you were to get back to the company itself, you guys are drastically outnumbered, like 4 or 5, maybe 6 to 1. Like that's how crazy this is. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort of abstract this a little bit, and we're going to do something more of an endeavor. So we're going to call this difficulty 9, skill endeavor. Get used to this. We're going to be doing this a lot. The limit, we're going to say 7. Everyone's got to participate. You got to kind of walk me through how you guys are escaping this. Those of you that are escaping, how you're organizing the company to either flee or fight, or however you want to do it. Kind of embellish your descriptions, all sorts of things. If any of you roll an ISR, call it out, because there's special fun things that are going to happen. So really good skills to use for this endeavor are battle, obviously for tactics or abstracted combat, all if you're looking to intimidate your foes, or enhearten if you're looking to inspire your allies. If you have other ideas in mind, go right ahead and do that, but they might suffer some sort of penalty. And that's how this is going to go. So we'll start. The group of you that went and got the scout, carrying the body, you're racing down. You're not on horseback. You're on the ground. You're moving by feet. You're scrambling down this rocky mountain, and you can see that the goblins and the orcs that are coming down to you, some of them are also on foot, but you also hear the sounds of various arrows being launched, and you look up and you just see a patch of black in the sky as about a dozen of them fall just a few feet away from you. Not only that, but you also hear howls, not just war horns, but howls, and you see that there are some of these goblins and some of these orcs that are riding these massive white wolves, and you even hear the growl, the snarl of another distant creature a little bit further up. And again, it is like it's daytime, but the problem is that there's no clear line of sight to the sun. Everything's overcast here. It's just dark, kind of grayish look. So you're not having trouble with your vision, but at the same time, you don't necessarily have the sun on your side. But you also know that when you're looking up, there's a few trolls and such that are in the midst. So I'm going to turn it over to you all. How are you handling this? Tell me what you're doing. Walk me through it. How are we getting away? How are we fighting? Go.
So Oryniel is definitely going to move into kind of like battle tactics of kind of telling kind of which group to go in which particular direction. So she'll kind of tactically, some of it's just going to be who kind of started it in which location, but also like where should people with bows go? Where should people who can, kind of fight melee go? And so she's definitely going to be kind of that directing, kind of that battlefield. I can't be captain because that role is already taken, but
you are first ranger. So yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and give us a battle roll, and let's see how that works out for you. So as you're running back, Oryniel is shouting at some of the other rangers, some of whom have bows. They step to the side and they fire a few volleys backwards just to try to slow some of the approach, or maybe fire back at a few of the patches of goblin archers just to get them to scatter and delay. Your bows are much stronger. They are at higher elevation, so there's almost a wash, but your people are probably much more accurate with your shots. How did you do, Oryniel?
So I'm looking back a little bit, sorry, on my Argaleb's helm because it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
first of my roll, and I still have to roll 2 additional d6s. I have a Gandy and an extra 6. So
Excellent,
I am going
excellent.
to roll again, and
Melissa
I
knows
got
how to
a
lie. It's great.
lolly.
Okay.
So this is a
3.
Gandy
total.
and 2 6s.
Yep.
So extraordinary success.
We see for a moment as Irenial, like you hop up onto a rock, just kind of shouting. You're seeing Daggett and Gilly and some of the others that are rushing past you. You're pointing at one of Lady Aracel's people who are going off to the side, firing bows up. You see Lady Aracel, who has been carrying the body of this scout. She stops for a moment, kind of looks at you. You think maybe she's thinking, is it her job to do? But then she sees Irenial kind of taking command, taking control, and then she follows your orders and runs past. And for the slightest moment, this little cut in the cloud cover above opens up just very, very little bit of sunlight, wafts down, and we see it track across the rocks a bit. And we see Irenial almost for a moment just illuminated. The little symbol of the star glistens ever so briefly before the cloud cover swallows it back up again. Who is next?
I'd like Tara to go next, but can I use an NPC alias or?
Yeah,
no?
you have a couple with you, so if you want to use, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Can I use the Rivendell elves?
Sure.
And so their distinctive features are fierce, true-hearted, and brash.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna use the battle stat as well. And similar to what Renil has done, but I would say that Tara always has considered herself a soldier first and a ranger second. And for that reason, this actually kind of is really allowing her to step into a space that she's quite comfortable in. And she is bolstering and providing more specifics to Aurelia's direction. And there's almost squads and platoons that are being created between the secondary set of instructions that layer on top of Aurelia's.
So we see the Rivendell elves, we see Elro here, we see Eladin, the twins, we see a few others. They brought like a pair with them as well. One of whom you probably met, Curador, who's like a smith. They come with great alacrity from the camp, as they had stayed a little bit further back with Floyd, but the sounds of the horns, they have kind of chased after you, and unsurprisingly, the elves have gotten here quicker than others. You see them throwing these curved blades in the direction as this orc leaps up behind one of these boulders and just catches it square in the chest, and it falls down. Eladin pulls and rears back on a Rivendell-made bow, fires quite higher and farther than you might have imagined. You see somewhere up there as this group of goblins is like whipping this cave troll that's trying to move further and further down. You see the arrow just reaches up and over, snaps one of the tethers, and the cave troll just kind of starts going wild and sweeping away through some of the horde that's coming down. Tara, give us your battle roll. Let us know how you do.
Do I get one extra die for the allies, or how does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you get an extra D. Right, there should be 6, but the elves are no longer usable until everyone's gone.
Okay. That is a 25 total with a 12 on the feat die.
Okay, so another Gandy. You guys roll Gandys way more frequently than all of our other games. Do you have any,
That's because there aren't
6s?
candies.
There's always a Gandy.
No.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So that's I think we're down to difficulty 5, limit of 5. So we're even. You've already caught up. But you see, as Irenial is like shouting, grouping, sending out specific objectives here and there. Tara, you're like passing those orders along almost like submarine style, and then being more specific about which group goes here and accomplishes this task and that task. And we just see as flanks of these wolf riders start sweeping around and threatening to close in on those who are escaping with the body of the ranger. We just see this series of arrows being fired in rapid succession, Legolas style, as we see them just constantly. The riders get thrown off, the wolves slide across the rock or tumble down the slope out of control, and we move on. Who's next?
I've got something.
Okay, let's go, Captain.
Daggett, I'd like to use awareness if I can, maybe scan if that works better. I would like to be looking for like openings in their lines that we could try to retreat through, or like possibly the geography, best way to use that to like at least bottleneck them as we're pulling back, just to limit their forces. Like you said, they're surrounding us. If we could go into a valley or something like that,
Sure.
where they get funneled towards us.
I do think
just
that
looking for
this-
an avenue to go.
I think this is pretty much what the battle skill is, but you can use one of those others, but I will make it ill-favored. So if you want to use scan or awareness, you can. Let's just make it ill-favored because you're using them for not quite the same thing that
The
like,
other
battle
elves have keen eye as well. Like
Yeah,
as a
the,
distinct feature, the
elves are
four-horned
four-horned.
elves.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do awareness then. Ill-favored. And could I use the Oathbreaker dwarves because they are strong, stealthy, rebellious? They've
Amazing.
ambushed a lot in the past, as
Absolutely.
we have learned. So they would know like avenues of retreat and things like that. I would assume.
Absolutely. Okay, so yeah,
Where's
give
the
it a
nails?
roll. Yeah, give it a roll.
All right.
Let us know how you do. As we see your brother,
Yep.
we see Roland, we see many of the others from the northern Blue Mountains with their tarnished, mismatched armor, nothing like the grandiosity that is Floy and the Gladrock hulls come rushing into battle, headlong, like bowling balls going through pins. They're just knocking orcs and goblins left and right. And if Daggett can't find an escape route, well, they're damn well going to make one. How'd you do, Daggett?
Melissa, I also used an audience die. I
Okay.
rolled a success, but I did not get any extra successes.
Hey, success is still
I got it.
progress.
20 over 13.
And you see as this one group of these riders that are outriding obviously the rest of the foot soldiers and things coming down the mountains swoops around, threatens to cut off your retreat back into the group. All of a sudden your brother Snagit comes leaping out from behind this grouping of dwarves that were charging in, and you just see him with his axe drawn and thrown back and buries it right into the neck of this leading, very pale looking orc with these large green eyes, and just hacks right through the neck. You see the head just go tumbling down as if it was just a rock in an avalanche. You see Rollin sweep down low and kind of take out the legs of the wolf, and that sliding wolf almost takes down a few of these other riders, allowing the rest of the Oathbreakers to swarm and stab and swing and smash with rocks. And you can see picks. Like these aren't the greatest weapons of all, but they are making great use. And those of you that are pulling back and trying to regroup with your full company now have something of a path. You're no longer being flanked. We are at 4 to go. 4 limit, 4 difficulty, 4 and 4. Who's next? Bottom row is done, so it's Floyd or Gilly.
Phoebe, Thorvim. You do think there's no one here?
What?
Well, they've gotten a head start on us.
Yeah. And you're like, well, let's go hop in the pool, shall we? And they start running up, kind of chasing after the Oathbreakers. And Thebe is just like, light up! And then off she goes, kind of wanting as well. What are you rolling, Floy?
Start with a little awe. We're going to show them what happens when they mess with our warband.
Okay. All right, give it a roll. So as there's this swarm of Oathbreaker doors smashing all of these fallen riders, we see Thorvim and Thebe and other craftsmen dwarves that are coming up, all of which have hammers. They have weapons, but their weapons are basically tools of the craft being repurposed for violence. And boy, do they enact violence as these giant blacksmithing hammers with sickening crunches flatten the heads of goblins still trying to climb out from underneath these wolves. We hear the white rolls as they're trying to get up just screech in pain as their saliva is just thrown left and right as they're looking to bite at the legs of these dwarves that are running up the foothills. How'd you do, Floy?
1 success.
And even still, even with that 1 success, you just hear as this array of blood and fur and guts are on the ground in front of you. You look off and you see there was a second wave of these riders that are threatening to chase down, and they have kind of screeched to a halt. You can see dust beginning to kick up as this dozen or so riders thinks twice about the fact of what they're seeing and you look out, Floy, standing atop this boulder, this mighty dwarf, mithril glittering and glistening in the tiny bit of sun coming out, and you see them begin to retreat. You hear the war horns. One of them pulls out and starts shouting the horn back, and you can hear it being echoed further up, as if there's some dissent now on whether to continue to push or whether to retreat. 1 success, right?
Correct.
All right. 3 and 3, Gilly, we come to you. What would you like to do?
I think Gilly would take a small band of archers with her, and they would stealth off to sort of do a flank. And
Okay.
they're gonna attempt to target the people with the horns to disrupt their communication.
Okay, so who do we have left? I think we've used both elves. I think we've used both dwarves.
I don't
think only
think
Tharbad
I
is
don't think
left.
we used both elves. I suggested Forlond because I
thought
thought
someone
thinking
used,
that it would help.
Someone-
No, I
someone
used Rivendell, but
Rivendell. Okay, yeah. So we'll say the Forlorn elves would be perfect for this. Yeah, Balavan
yeah.
and
Good
some of
point.
his soldiers. Yeah.
Yeah, so Gilly would call for Amdrim and Balavan and
Yeah.
Okay.
Stealth. I'm gonna make this. We're gonna say this is ill-favored. The battle is already joined. Trying to stealth off in the middle of a fight is a little bit harder than doing it prior to the initiation of that fight. So we'll say it's ill-favored,
Okay.
but I still think you can roll it. Still get the bonus die from using them as you hear like Amdarim. It's like, we're coming, Miss Kettlegrass. And Balavan doesn't respond, but he does kind of the classic, and he looks back, and you can see the group of elves that he brought, those that worked as wardens within Linden that you met when you were on the coast, when you were trying to help Floy. They are following, and they have, if you could describe it as such, anger in their eyes. They look to enact certain amounts of vengeance on those that are coming. How'd you do on the roll?
I'm rolling now. My stealth is favored, so I'm rolling flat.
Yeah, it sounds good.
And that's a great success.
So 2.
I passed, and then I got
And
an
you got
extra
the extra.
6.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we're down to 1 difficulty, 2 time. And so as Gilly, as you all at this point reunite, your company is essentially together once more, scattered a little bit across this makeshift battlefield at the base of the mountain coming down, but you are all in relative control of one another, in constant contact. Gilly and Balavan and Amdrim and the other Forlorn wardens, you sneak out in a way. You find a small cleft, this that you can kind of quickly climb up, and from some level of height, you start firing down this rapid machine gun fire. And if you're not doing it, Gilly, it's definitely Balavan, and all he has to do is just look at his people, and they're just bringing up their bows in perfect parallel unison. Fire down, reload, fire down, reload, fire, just one after the other. You can see Amdrim getting in that as well, and maybe you start timing it, and just every arrow is a hit, every single one, and not a single one of these goblins survives. They get hit and fall, hit and fall, hit and fall. You never see a stray arrow. We come around to the start. Anyone can roll at this point. You've all gone once, so there is 1 difficulty left. There is 2 chances at this, so 2 chances to get 1. If you roll a Sauron in your roll, that might change some things, but for right now, it's just one success is needed. How do you do the final push to get them to retreat and slaughter as much as you can before they do so?
I have an idea unless someone else wants to do something.
You're the damn captain, Daggett. You do what you want to do.
I would like you were talking about how the Oathbreakers were basically breaking through a line to stop them from flanking us.
Yes.
I would like to lead my Oathbreakers somewhat stealthily around and flank them instead, since I've broken through, come back, hopefully using stealth, if that's okay, to try and like stay out of view. My Oathbreakers are stealthy and rebellious, so
yeah, I'm still gonna make that one ill-favored
Ill-favored?
and everything.
That's fine. Yeah.
I still think just because the heat of battle, just because they are coming down the mountain and have a slightly higher position on you. But yes, absolutely, and take the extra die because we'll reset the NPCs, and anyone can use anyone.
I'd like to take an audience die too, if I can.
Okay.
And so as we're watching this horrific crunching, this just utter demolishing of this outriding group, we see Daggett, we see his brother. The two of you meet in the midst of this carnage, and both of you kind of look, and you see this this small path, and it's not even really a path. It's just how the geology just happened to work out. And as if you knew, just like that trek where you encountered Snagit all those months ago, all those years ago, really, at this point, you start running up this little switchback path, double backing, and you can see above you, you can hear the thunderous hooves of some of the rams that these are riding. You can hear the paws of the wolf riders. You can even see the crunching of the earth as a troll or two tries to kind of break free from its masters. And we see, with the dirt and the rocks kind of falling down, we follow it with our cameras, and we just see like the dwarves of Daggett and Snagit and Ralt and the others getting rained on from above as they're sneaking up behind. How'd you do?
Andy, great success.
And so you,
Oh yes.
the two of you, brothers leading, Rollin following, Rest coming as well, quickly creating this very industrious moment where like all of you just very quickly and efficiently just create this path upwards. There's no clear like ladder. There's no clear steps, but you create this moment where you just like each of you giving the other a boost and a boost and a boost, and then you launch out where this cave troll is like still trying to rebel against all these goblins, like a rabid elephant that's trying to break free from its circus masters. You see these goblins and orcs sliding around, some of them trying to flee back up the mountain, others getting taken out by the arrows from Gilly and the elves, and then all of you just come swarming. You see the cut of an axe slice across the Achilles of this troll, and it just screams out in pain, and then a second one comes, and it hobbles down. As it falls to its knees, we see a group of dwarves. We see Daggett on one side, Snagit on the other, just leap up, burying weapons into the shoulders behind. And right where the face is, Rollin steps up, this big, crude metal spear, and just jams it right up underneath the chin and into the small brain of this cave troll. At that, we hear this cacophony of horns panicking as, I would say, at least half, if not more, of this force begins to retreat. They start running back up the up Mount Grom. You see them start to disappear into some of these craves, these crooks and crannies, these caves. Others you can see are just running northward into Angmar, southward down into the Dark Hills. Your arrows are flying and picking off stragglers left and right, but you have done a significant blow. And once the dust settles and you start counting things up, you look around, and there's only one casualty, and it's the casualty that Lady Aerosol was carrying back. None of you fell in this ambush, this group of mountains. But it does raise an interesting point. You're not here. You're not here in a manner that is as stealthy as perhaps you would have liked. They are aware of your presence, whether it's the goblins themselves, whether it's whatever force leads Angmar, whether it's the hill folk led by Braddock. This felt too perfect. This felt too timely. And if you had hoped of trying to sneak through Angmar with this kind of force without being seen, that hope seems to have died. But fortunately, no one else has. After maybe about 45 minutes of cleanup, going through the battlefield, mercy killing whatever's left, you all can take a breather and look around and realize that the battle is won.
Reneel would go over to Lady Aerosol.
You can see her. She's got her sword out at this point, covered in blood. She's cleaning it off here and there. She got into the fight at some point. The Rangers were making sure to defend various, some of your pack animals, your possessions. It looked like there was this small contingent of sneaky goblins that had popped up from these little caves and were trying to take out some of your supplies. But fortunately, there were people that were back here ready to defend them. So she sees you. Renew. Well done.
Battle well fought.
Indeed. This was just the first of what I would imagine would be many in the weeks and months to come.
Yes, I agree. Our kind of looking around, our luck has already not held, but that was fine work from everyone to not accrue an additional casualty. But I did not want that to overtake your loss. I don't believe I asked what is the name of our fallen companion?
She looks down, and you can see that they've kind of wrapped him up. This is Falindim. He was a wonderful musician, I must say. A voice that, well, rivaled an elves. But his loss shall be felt. His eyes are keen. He was one of our more accomplished scouts. How they managed to get him unawares, it bothers me. But I imagine he will not be the only loss we suffer. Steel yourself, Arenial. Do not forget that we enter into war, and there will be casualties. The battles will not all be like what we just saw right here. Imagine we come here with 70, we will leave with far less. And she also kind of like thinks about it for a second. And it is not luck that will see us through. It's courage, hope, and duty. A dwarf friend of yours likes to style himself a captain as if he is in charge of them. But it was you, Orinu. You and Tara who managed to ensure the retreat, and we could get back here to safety. She kind of steps closer, puts kind of a hand on your shoulder and kind of up to your cheek a little bit, and it's surprisingly tender for a moment. Your mother will be proud.
I thank you for those kind words. I must admit, this is probably not good, but I try not to think of her often, especially in moments like this. I need focus to complete the task at hand. And I thank you for the kind words. I do hope that perhaps one day my brother might take up the mantle and do what needs to be done. But out here, there's so much death, and we all need to do what we need to do, regardless of whether it means leaving others behind.
She looks north. It is a dead realm, Aurelius. There are creatures here, but they are not outnumbered by us. It is the dead that populate this place more than any other. The rest of us are mere tourists. They'll whisper at you from the shadows. They'll reach at you from the ice. They'll come at you when you can't see them. The dead echo in this place. Now, we have a task at hand. We are barely here. We are mere footsteps into this realm. And we have other things to tend to, do we not?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that all of those that fall, their names are respected on our tongues.
They will be sung. They will be written. We will tell their tale and their story and their glories when we return. Think not for the dead. Think for the living.
And so Irenial will sort of touch her arm a little bit and then go back to the rest of the fellowship.
Okay. Is anyone else doing anything in particular post-battle?
Just regroup and get everyone else to move along.
Sure, absolutely.
Before that, Tara's gonna go over to the fallen ranger and just sort of quietly take a moment and mutter some words to herself. No intention to let anyone else hear. Well, one more death that didn't need to happen. I will make sure to add you to the list of those I must avenge. And then she regroups.
Okay. No one interrupts you. Gilly or Daggett, anything in particular?
Daggett's first reaction after seeing the battle as won, hearing the cheers of his fellow dwarves, would be immediately to start going through the different war bands looking for casualties. And then seeing that we didn't have any other than the one we lost earlier, he would just kind of collapse onto a nearby stone or log, just exhausted, still catching his breath because, his cardio is not as good as it used to be, but he just could not rest until he knew what the casualties were.
Mm-hmm. As you're sitting there, Daggett, exhausted, wind kicks up very cold. Now, remember, it's springtime. You guys have been traveling through a very rainy period in Root Hour. Like, it's much warmer than the last time you traveled through, but the rain has been, constant. And you are effectively just west of Mount Grom, right on the border of Angmar. You're right. You can see the Dead Realm starting to unfurl in front of you. And as you're sitting there, the wind kicks in, and you can hear like the whistling come and go. Maybe you take your helmet off for a second, wipe your brow, and you hear, as you rest Block Fong kind of on your knee, it's as if the wind itself is whispering in your ear. And it feels like someone is talking to you, like someone is speaking right into your ear.
Is it intelligible?
It's a language you're not sure you know, but you probably think it is a language. It does sound like a voice speaking to you.
I think Daggett would be caught off guard by it, especially with the exhaustion, the adrenaline fading away, and he would hear that and he would just, what? Who said that? What was just looking around for?
Your brother Snagit is just a few feet away. He and some of the Oathbreaker dwarves are kind of cleaning up, taking whatever they can, taking supplies from some of these orcs. Now, you usually don't want to use orcish weapons, but much like some other denizens of Angmar that you fought before, they are much better equipped than your average orc or goblin. You're seeing the weapons are not crude. They're actually well made. And the dwarves, like your brother and friends, like they're kind of marveling at the fact, like, this is better than ours. And then when you kind of shout up, like, what was that, brother?
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
I said that these orcs have better axes than we have. Look at this.
No, I heard that. What was the mum?
Are you all right? Do we need to call Miss Kettlegrass? One of the elves. Did you take a bow?
No, I'm fine.
Let me look at you. And he comes.
It's fine.
He comes
it's
over.
fine.
No,
I get up and I
look
just
at
start
you.
walking away.
And you hear behind you as you walk away, Snagit saying to his brother, "He gets that from our father, you know."
I would stop a second there. My grip on the axe would tighten, and then I would keep walking.
Okay.
Begrudgingly.
Keely, was there anything that you wanted to do in the aftermath?
Gilly's victory enjoyment's probably a lot more muted than the rest of the fellowship. She will go around with Balavan and the elves and retrieve their arrows from the bodies. And it's very somber. There's no talking or anything, and then they return to the group.
Roll a scan, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, as you're retrieving arrows from those that you killed, those that you can. Some are not intact anymore, but whatever you can get, you're certainly trying to salvage. Absolutely. Yeah. And the elves are doing the same. You can also see that Balavan and some of the Forlorn elves are like looking at you like with a newfound sort of respect in their eyes. Like, you fire the bow well, Miss Kettlegrass. You have the eyes of an elf. Perhaps the fingers as well.
Thank you. I have spent a lot of time training with the healer. And she'll rattle off his name. I practice a lot of stitching.
I see.
And,
You know, Sorendir was not, and this is Balavento, Sorendir was not the finest of archers, but he was quite capable with the spear. Wonder if you ever trained with him before his departure.
With bows, not often, but we did frequently pair up. And then that's when Gilly will go in about a different time where we encountered goblins and how we had the cool combo kill where I had tripped them and then he had got them on his spear and everything. And then after the story, she gets pretty sad and quiet again.
Sure. Balavan doesn't really kind of follow up. He just kind of nods and listens respectfully. He doesn't treat you in the manner that you've seen him treat some of the others in the party, but he listens to you respectfully. Gilly, as you're looking through, kind of sort of kind of offhandedly telling him this story, but also kind of going through the things at the same time, you notice that, much like I just mentioned the Daggett, the gear, like this is not tattered leathers. Like there are orcs that are wearing mail. There are, like, even some of the goblins themselves have like little chain, like this like kind of chain plate that kind of sits over top of their leather. Their weapons are very sharp. And you know, you kind of pick up bow heads and you're looking at them, and normally like there's these sort of very crude, blackened, poison covered darts. But here, I mean, the broadheads, like they're not unlike your own. They look, I mean, they're a little darker, and you imagine they probably are poison tip, but the quality of them is quite nice. And how'd you do? Was your roll scan? Did I ask you to roll scan?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Great success.
And you do notice that a few of them, some of the larger orcs that you think were riding possibly the wolves, these dead white wolves, you're thinking maybe like a captain or a lieutenant, or at the very least like a leader of a squadron or something like that, or squad. You can tell that they have, like, right along the collar, not unlike Floy, they have a little like maker's mark that looks very familiar. It's different, like, but you can tell, much like someone might over time imitate that which came before.
Okay, yeah.
It has that kind of feeling to it. It's not exact, but boy, does that look very, very similar to what you've seen on Floy's Mithril and on Daggett's Balakfall.
Okay, and Gilly did do studies of that dwarven crafter who...
Yeah. You heard a name, too. Do you remember it?
I have to find it in my notes, but I do remember writing it down.
Yeah, you heard a name, Gulfan.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Very similar. And if you recall, like it was a sort of an interesting read, because like you've heard about this dwarves, but a lot of the stories that you were getting, they weren't properly dated or allocated. Like they were told, they were recorded, but in terms of when some of these things were happening is very unclear. So you're not sure if it was the same person or if it was a different person, if it was a family name, or if it was like Floy with Gladrock. It was kind of very, very hard to sort of distinguish, but that name kept coming up. And one of the things you did remember that you did uncover in the library of Tharbad was that he was obsessed with dragons and had kind of infused in Block Fong like the bones and the ash of dragons, that like these whelps that he had gone and slaughtered on the Withered Heath, far to the east of the Iron Mountain, and that had kind of brought the ire of the dragons on some Iron Mountain dwarves who the hell knows how long ago.
Yeah.
But you're seeing, again, a very similar image, very similar maker's mark, the kind of thing that maybe a father and a son, or a mother and a daughter, or whatever it might be, like one generation to the other, they make their adjustment, they make their tweak. Similar to the way in which the kingdoms of Andor and the successor kingdom of Arthedain, similar in that on that star, and Cardalin with Taraneth as well over the hill, you can see that same symbol repeating of the star over and over again, but never quite exactly the same.
And you said his name is Golfang?
Gulfan, Gulfan.
Okay. Gilly, while looking at one in particular, she'll look at Balavan and ask him directly, what do you know of Gulfan?
I'm so sorry. Before you answer that question, Jeff, just from my notes, you said it was the same symbol as before, a star.
No,
My
that was
notes.
that was my example, of how.
Oh, I see. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I misunderstood because my notes say like a white handprint.
Yes, that's correct. Like that was
Okay.
the print on like the orcs and stuff that you found south of Farback.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I was more like the iconography of like Andor and Arthedain and Cardin that we've seen has that star repeating, like it shows
Right.
up in these different kingdoms,
Right.
just in a slightly different way, and that's kind of what you're seeing.
Misunderstood. I'm so sorry.
Good.
Balavan looks at you. I'm sorry, Miss Kettlegrass. That is not knowledge that I have.
And she starts to sort of think out loud, and she'll say, this crafter's mark is very similar to his original crafter's mark, but it's different. So that tells me that we have someone who is actively providing armor and improved weapons to these. And there's the Weathered Keep. I'd have to reference my notes.
Withered Heath is nowhere close to here. That's way east.
So
like it's
what is it that I
across
have
these
in my
mountains.
notes about Mount Gundabad? Because I said it believes to be
Mount-
forged in the fires of the Grey Mountains.
Well, Mount Gundabad, you can see on the map. Mount Gundabad is to the east, like just straight east of where you guys currently are. And you know that Mount Gundabad, and the history of Mount Gundabad is basically it was Dwarvish controlled, but then it was Orcish controlled, and it's sort of been like Orcish controlled for a very significant period of time at this point. Off to the east, not on the area door map, is like sort of the Iron Mountains eventually would appear far to the east from here. And like essentially in the history of it, eventually some of those halls were kind of abandoned, and then like the Lonely Mountain itself was sort of like taken up, and that's what like the Hobbit's about and everything. We're taking that, but
Gotcha.
but this stuff is just it's like ancient history.
Got
so
it.
yeah,
And
it's nowhere near Forlond either. So
yeah, makes sense. So she's just thinking they're so much older than she is. Maybe they have heard something, but she's gonna
sure. But
let them
Balavan's not
know.
that old. Balavan, like Sorendir,
True.
is actually a third age elf. So he's not like relative to like he's not like Ortolos or Galadriel
Yeah.
or Elrond, who has lived across multiple ages. So like he's a third age elf.
Gotcha. But Gilly also remembers that Rotag was attempting to get to Mount Gundabad. And that was a place that we had cut them off and prevent them from going.
Mhm.
So she's I have to speak to Auriniel. I wonder if they did wind up setting up operations there.
Well, Mount Gundabad has long been under Orcish control. So one of the
Gotcha.
reasons that Rotag was heading there, you all surmised long ago, was that he was literally just trying to amass a big ass army.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he knew that there were orcs in Gundabad, and he was a badass Oleg High, and he had taken all these orcs from the Southlands, from Dunland and everything, orcs from Angmar, and he's like, I'm gonna take these orcs from Gundabad as well. And you remember how he
Okay.
swept through Mount Grom, and when
Yeah.
you all went through Mount Grom, like half of Mount Grom went with him. So
Yeah.
kind of that kind of deal. He was
Gotcha, okay.
just sort of amassing. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so after a moment of respite, you all are basically on the southern border. You're still, I would say, like there's look a couple like a mile south is the Dark Hills of Rudour. There's no lines, lines on a map, not necessarily in real life, but you're effectively on the border between Rudour and Angmar. Now, you are very close to Mount Grom. What you know of Mount Grom is that there is a significant portion. Like there is a lot of danger in there, and while you all were able to kind of repel them here, lingering could be trouble, especially since from your time with Marambim, you know that there are trolls that linger about as well, and those are a little bit sturdier and than some of these goblins are. In terms of the journey phase, you guys are not technically all the way into where you had mapped. We don't necessarily have to be that precise with it. So if you wanted to do one more travel roll to try to get push further into like a more centralized position, or if we want to just end the journey phase here and say that your travel from Mount Grom is maybe a day away as opposed to like an extra couple of days, I'm fine with that too. So it's just kind of it's up to you guys how further into Angmar you want to go with the journey phase.
Would we feel like we would be safer like with mountains closer by, or would we be in more danger because that's where a lot of the orcs are?
You would be in more danger the closer you are to Mount Grom specifically.
Then I would say we keep pushing towards a central location. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and I would
I
say
agree.
like we literally just got attacked here. It seems like we should probably move from here. So I would also vote to continue on.
Yeah.
Especially with the amount of bodies here now, that's going to attract a lot of attention.
Yeah. I mean, no.
As captain, I would
it's-
say all that in different words as if it's my own idea.
Daggett, were you doing our travel rolls? Go ahead and give us another one.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't colossally fail, you'll probably be fine.
Okay, well, when you say that,
Oh.
I'm going to take an audience die.
Dear. Okay, got it.
Just don't fail too bad.
Let me do some math here.
Oh
Uh-oh.
boy.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
so I did succeed with 2 successes. However, I also rolled a Sauron.
Okay, good to know. Thank you very much.
5, 5, 6, 6, 1, 11.
You guys push further away from Mount Grom, the battle, and the time afterward, surveying, patching up wounds, basic wounds, nothing. No one really suffered anything severe. Making sure your animals are gathered back up and not spooked, and then pushing northward. Now, it's not long, we'll say a day before you really start to feel that you have kind of crossed into a place of difference. The sky just seems to be a little darker. The ground just feels a little firmer. The wind kind of cuts through your clothes and your cloaks in a manner that didn't quite happen as you were traveling across Rudour. There's a gloom to the place. There's a mist that kind of hovers periodically from one hill to the next. Descending into a valley is always a little disconcerting. Your ponies and your horses, you can hear them whinnying, giving them attention. You're caring for them, but they are quite spooked. You lose all sight of the sun. It never comes out, not even a glimpse of it at all. The only evidence you have is that the clouds overhead are just a slightly lighter shade of gray during the day and a darker shade at night. Rain falls, this cold sleet that kind of hits you here and there, and you all feel the pressure of it. At night, as you're traveling, as you're camping and rotating, Daggett and others, you hear people remark of whispers on the wind. People remarking of something trying to lure them into the shadows. Others starting to question exactly what might await them. And it is a difficult route. But eventually you do actually push further inward. And as if just kind of like this moment of fortune, you kind of come across this burn. You see this stream cutting through these gentle hills that are covered with trees. The trees have no vegetation whatsoever on them. They are just this dark gray, brittle, wiry tree. But they are there to actually provide some level of and they can kind of obscure your travel for at least a few hours. You find a series of caves, some of the dwarves, the Oathbreaker dwarves, the dwarves from the Dunland, and they go in there, they find some small critters and things. They come out with what actually looks like some supplies here and there. And it's then that Lady Aerosol will kind of approach you, Daggett, and you, Irinial, and you, Tara, essentially the whole party. And this place, you will not find perhaps a better place. There's no safety in Angmar, but we can put our keen-eyed elves in the trees. Our dwarves can ensure all routes to the caves are not overtaken. And this burn allows us the freshest of water that we will probably be able to find in Angmar. If only that there was a place for us to stage what we do here in this realm. Here is the place. If, of course, you all agree. I do not mean to presume a role that is not mine.
There's wisdom in that. I agree, the keeping ourselves somewhat sheltered, somewhat lack of thirst will certainly help. We must plan quickly.
So what we'll do is we'll end the journey phase. So let's go ahead and going to do that process, and then we can kind of begin the next thing. So it's the end of the journey phase. So what we're going to do, if you have a mount, subtract your mount's vigor from your current fatigue. Then roll a travel test. Reduce your fatigue by 1. Plus 1 point for a success, I should say. So you roll a travel test. If you succeed, reduce your fatigue by 1, plus an extra 1 for each bonus icon you roll on your d6s. So if you've forgotten, I will share you in Foundry the summary. So we're ending the journey.
I was able to reduce 3 fatigue, 2 by my mount, and a success
Very
on
nice.
travel.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. And we see that everyone here that you've brought is pretty accomplished. There's not a whole lot of folks within your company of 50 plus, nearly 60 folk, that is without experience. Obviously, most of them have no experience in this place, but there's others that do have experience in fighting combat with orcs, some with undead. And so, although you hear conversations periodically of concern and people marveling at the darkness, the shadow, the oppression that just seems to be wafting through the air of this place, no one seems to break heart. It's more just observation. And everyone does seem to tend to their jobs. So those that were keeping an eye on the animals and keeping an eye on supplies are unloading them, finding safe places for them. Others are collecting water from this burn, from this small stream. They're giving it to fire first to try to make sure it's clean. They're ensuring that there's nothing feeding into that stream from upstream that might be harming it or dirtying it in any particular way. Elves are climbing up some of those tall, gnarled trees and finding perches to look as far as they can. There isn't a ton of ways to get a very lengthy view of what's coming because there's just so much fog and mist and rain that kind of cycles through, but they're the best to kind of to do this. And so over the course of, we'll say, an afternoon, camp is set. It's as stealthy as it can be. A lot of folks are either kind of on the sort of the slope side of a hill, or they're in the caves themselves, and you do what you can. So at this point, what you guys can do if you want, I'll give you a rest. I know some of you are very concerned with endurance, so we can say you can go ahead and have your rest. What are you shaking your head for, Steven? You don't want to? Okay, I'm sorry. Steven said no.
He is the captain.
It's that tyranny taking over.
I would very much love a rest.
I figured you would, Floy. Go ahead and take your rest. And we'll say when the morrow comes, when the next day comes, morning, there is no sun over the misty mountains to the east. There's just lighter gray in the sky. Food is being portioned out in a way that isn't overflowing. People are being concerned with it. The dwarves have managed to find some mole-like creature within the caves that people are feasting on that tastes somewhat like rabbit, but not nearly as pulpy and juicy as it could be. But eventually we see a meeting of the minds. We see a group of folks coming together. And so we can get into this. So let's talk about how this is going to work. There are a variety of places that you could potentially go within Angmar. And I know that the 5 of you and the Forlorn Elves have very specific goals with Othrengul. But that is not the only dangerous place, and that is not the only dangerous group that you have to concern yourselves with. You have heard already about Braddock and about the hill folk that have taken control of a castle, Mol Emin Taras, which is off to sort of the west or southwest of where you guys are. You know that there is Mount Gram and whatever leadership might be there. You know, and you've heard rumors for a very long time of Karn Dûm, and how that is like the ancient capital of Angmar, and how there have been lights seen for years, activity. You've heard stories from other folk about there being rebuilding happening. At a certain point, Amtharim joins this group, and he tells you some stories that he heard from Lady Ortolos and about the time in which they were here. If you recall, like the Elves of Forlorn actually came here. Many of those are the ones that are suffering or they have gone to the west, but even those that didn't come have heard stories. And you're told of a story of not just Karn Dûm, but one of the dangers of traveling to Karn Dûm was that there was a tower en route that, much like the elves are struggling now for vision and for scouting, there was a tower called Kelek Dor that kind of was sort of like a first vision for Karn Dûm, and you could alert from a distance the any of the fences that might have been there. And Amdrim kind of gives you as much information as they can about that place, and I will go ahead and reveal it for you on the map as well. And so, like, you kind of know of these places, and there might even be more. Everyone is here not necessarily to recover Sorendir. Like, everyone is here because you have warned them that Angmar is growing. Angmar is a threat. Angmar could potentially be stopped or slowed in its growth right now. So we're going to turn it to you all, and you're going to kind of figure out what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it. So we have a little system. We're going to do like RTS time. And you all have a group of allies that you can send on various tasks and missions. I'm not going to give you necessarily keywords for what you do, but things like scouting, assassination, sabotage, infiltration, overthrow, any types of things, whatever you can think of that you want them for, you can potentially send these groups out. And you can send them out, not just one group to one thing, but multiple groups, right? And so you can send them out to try to do things. So you know that the hill folk are in that castle. You know that Kelek Dor might light the way to Karn Dûm. You know that Othrengul perhaps was still doing some strange experiments on creatures, splicing them together. Sorendir was there, the faces, etc. And you know that Mount Gram is once again filled with a not insignificant number of goblins and such. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly what's going to happen in terms of you dealing with these things or not dealing with these things, but the basic gist is if you deal with them, that's going to be good for you. If you don't deal with them, that's going to potentially be bad for you. And so you guys get to kind of decide, like, who do you send? What do you have them do? That sort of thing. I've shared with you all our NPC allies rules that I kind of concocted, riffing off what's already in the book. But basically, what you send them off to do, they will roll based upon how their distinctive features align with whatever you're asking them to do. So if you're looking to do a stealthy task, if you want them to stealth and do something and they're terrible at stealthing, well, it's going to be hard for them to complete that. Some tasks might be simple, like delivering a message to somebody else that might have set up a post to observe Kelek Dor or something like that. Or some of them might be extraordinarily arduous, which is infiltrate Mount Gram itself and see who's actually in control of it, or assassinate the leader of the goblins, or whatever it might be. So this is kind of for you guys to play with. So I'm going to turn it over to you all, and you can talk in character or out of character. I don't really care. Just sort of walk through what are you looking to accomplish? Who are you looking to send to do what? And you can even bring some people with you, but what I would like to avoid, I'm just going to be honest with you, I don't want to do a dungeon crawl with 55 NPCs. Like that doesn't seem exciting. So let's not have 60 people busting into Othran Goal and be like, it doesn't really make sense. So
Sure.
I'll turn it over to you guys. How do you want to handle this? What do you guys want to do? What are you thinking? What are you saying?
Right off the bat, just the Forlorn Elves should be coming with us to Arthur Goal.
I think that makes
Because it makes
perfect
sense.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely agree.
I think Balavan would and Amdarim would almost be like
Expectingly.
Yeah. They if you try to tell them to do anything else, they might have been doing whatever they wanted at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking the same thing, that like, I kind of want to think about what their distinctive features match with, but also what are they already going to be motivated to do? Because I think they each came here for their own reason. And so absolutely, Balavan and Andoran and the rest of the Forlorn Elves should be coming with us to Othran Ghoul.
I think that we should send some of the dwarves to do assassination of the new hillfolk leader, since they did have the conflict of being hunted by some of them previously.
Can we send the Tharbad people to assist with that? Or only one
think we
group
could.
of NPCs?
I'm looking at the features here, and I do think Oathbreakers would be best for like an assassination with strong and stealthy. Tharbad Eager would help. Tall are hillfolk people tall? Do tall need tall to fight? Is that like rock paper scissors?
See, I was considering it more of like a full frontal assault, and that's why I was thinking that the Tharbad folks would be good for that.
Oh, do we want to do? Because I was thinking assassination. Like
like a quiet, stealthy thing.
Yeah.
Then never mind.
We could, instead of sending them Tharbad there, we can send Tharbad with the Dunlin dwarves to Mount Grom, where there's a lot of horde activity. Have them fight there instead.
That's a great idea.
Could also make the
And
case
we
that
need to-
dwarves in a mountain might actually. I mean, I might even consider giving a bonus for that because it makes sense.
Yeah.
Who better to navigate caves than dwarves?
Having two of them go would be good because they can support each other, and then it'll also clear the way back, because Mount Grom's going to be the most difficult to pass by when we leave, I think.
Good call. Then, Stephen, back to your point about the Oathbreaker dwarves to assist because the stealthy on the assassination.
My thought is that they'd be good for assassinating. Would we want to send them to the hillfolk? I feel like the hillfolk would be more difficult to deal with than like goblins or something like that. It's the more dangerous task, at least from like how I've heard it.
The other thing you guys could do is you could just send scouting. You can send them to scout and gain more information, and that might make it so that you have a better idea of what you're sending them in.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You know what I mean? So like you don't fully understand the layout of what's going on with Angmar right now. So you always have the ability to just send them to scout and collect information, and they'll come back. And because I'm expecting this Angmar stuff to last like game terms weeks, right? Like it's a camp.
Yeah.
It's like its own campaign. So like you don't necessarily have to think of them just jumping right to it. So you always have the ability just to do scout, gather information, come back, and then you to make bigger determinations.
That might be the best approach then, to see what it is that we're up against rather than kind of assume what it is we're up against.
Yeah. Looking at these keywords, you guys can tell me if you agree or not. I'm feeling like having Rangers and Oathbreakers do some scouting of the area, trying to secure the nearby vicinity. Maybe Oathbreakers go further out to try and learn more about the factions nearby, and then the Rangers scout our immediate vicinity, make sure that we know the lay of the land, ways to retreat, things like that.
Yeah.
And then Forlond elves coming with us. Rivendell elves, I would say, fierce, true-hearted, brash. We probably don't want brash going out immediately right now, but it would make sense for them to like hold the fort. They're fierce and true-hearted. They'll stay faithful. They'll make sure that the immediate vicinity is fine, like the camp for everyone to return to. If anyone gets in trouble, they're true-hearted. They'll go and help. So like they could be our reserves, so to speak.
Yeah,
So we could tell everyone that goes out, if they get in trouble, send a messenger, and then the Rivendell elves will come to, assist. something like that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Dunlin dwarves and Tharbad. I agree with Floyd having two of them go to Mount Graham, which sounds like one of the more dangerous places. Having two groups go together and they would work well together. They already know each other.
Yeah. And
Faithful,
the
bold, tough, eager, tall, vigilant. That all seems like good for that.
the dwarven bonus, potential bonus would be good.
I mean, Tharbad, he even explored those tunnels underneath with the orcs that were plaguing his homeland. So like he's got some experience going underground too. Not as much as dwarves, but
And I think he probably like he spent a lot of time figuring out that the orcs plaguing them were actually more tactical.
right.
So I think he goes in with some amount of knowledge about these kind of new flavored dwarves. Orcs, pardon me.
Okay, so just to clarify, so we're gonna have Tharbad and the Dunlins work on Mount Grom. What are we gonna have them do exactly? Like what action?
I think first and foremost, determine the strength of Mount Grom. And then after they do that, if they can find ways to weaken them, not necessarily
I was
assassinate, but
thinking
hinder.
like sabotage.
Yeah, sabotage.
Like if they can close, entrances down and trap them under the mountain, they might starve, etc.
Yeah, the Dunlin dwarves, they're sort of engineers as well. So like even if they bring down a few avalanches in choice places along paths, that close them down.
That's a good point.
Yeah. We mentioned having the Oathbreakers go out scouting. Are we thinking like the Kellictor tower, or
Thinking the Rangers go there because we haven't.
Yeah, I
signed
was
up yet.
thinking maybe the Mormon
Morimum
Terras?
Terras?
for
Yeah,
the scouting.
that's what I was thinking.
So I think that would be
For the Oathbreakers to go to Taras.
yes.
And then Rangers go to Kellictor, like Floy
Yeah.
said.
Right.
And both of them will just be fact gathering. If they, can cause some trouble, that wouldn't be a bad thing. But the point now is to stay cautious and not lose people yet. I'd say that
And
for all of them, to be
I
honest.
think that's all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we've
you've
accounted
got
for everyone.
Rangers,
Yeah.
Forlond Elves, Rivendell Elves, Dunlin Dwarves, Oathbreaker Dwarves from the Blue Mountains, and Tharbad Wards. So let's go through this again. I have the Rangers are going to Kellictor, and you said you wanted them to just gather information?
Yeah,
I'll
because
tell
I
you
think
this.
it's
Yeah, go ahead. Long, sorry.
I'll just say that's the less information we've had there.
Right.
At least.
All you know is it exists right now.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so this is what I'll say. If you just want them to scout, if that's all you're asking them to do, that's going to be a challenging. So TN 15, that's it. If you want them to actually perform anything else like sabotage or whatever, that's going to be a TN 18. So that's going to be like one of those arduous tasks. So do you just want them to scout and gain info?
Yeah, I
just
think
using
cautious.
their cautious distinctive feature.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Rivendell Elves. Where were you sending the twins and their friends? When I say Rivendell Elves, I don't necessarily mean that these are Elrond's people. These are Elrohir and Eladin. That's why they're brash, because they are. And then some of their friends, like you actually didn't get full support from Elrond and Rivendell. You just got a couple from Elrohir and Eladin. So I heard the same thing, Zoro, and I had to do like wait, did I make a like? Sorry. Where were
Where
we
did
sending
we send-
Rivendell?
Rivendell, we were
Rivendell
talking
Elves.
about holding the fort with the base, and if anyone has trouble, they would be the reserves to go
Okay.
help, because
Okay.
that's true-hearted and brash and
Yeah.
fierce.
Yeah.
I feel like
Okay,
that fits all
so
three.
They're just defending, keeping an eye on things. So that's just a
Yeah,
TN
like
12.
maybe scouting the immediate vicinity.
Yeah.
Okay.
More
Way to stay busy.
defensive than anything offensive.
Okay. So I'm going to call that something that's going to be simple. That's going to be a TN 12. That's going to be as easy as it gets for something in Angmar. Tharbad and company. So Tharnau and Titus and the rest
So-
of the wardens.
Going
They're
with
better
the
in
Dunlin
Dunlin.
dwarves to Mount
Yeah.
Grom.
Okay, so Mount Grom.
And that
Mm.
was going to be a scouting followed by sabotage.
Sabotage.
Okay.
Yeah, so since we're sending 2 groups,
gonna be-
one could do more scouting, one could do more sabotage, I suppose.
we can keep them separate, or we can keep them. Ideally, I'd like just to simplify this. I'm just going to say let's make them one group of one
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
Let's not
Yeah,
go
that's
too
fine.
crazy with
Yeah.
it. And if you're looking to have them actively interfere with what's going on there, it's going to be a TN 18, but you are getting bonus dice from both groups.
Yeah, sounds good.
So,
Just make them Sabo.
They're vigilant and stealthy and rebellious. So
all
it's a
right.
good combo.
Those are Oathbreakers that are rebellious. We're sending the Dunlin Dwarves that are bold and tough.
That's right.
All right.
Bold.
And then speaking of the Earthbaker dwarves, where did you want to send them?
To the Hillfolk, again on fact gathering.
Okay, so Hillfolk. Okay, got it. So Malamin Teras,
Yes.
the Dark Castle, basically, is what that says. So if it's just scouting, TN 15, that's it. So scout. Okay. And then I heard that the Rangers were going to go scout out Kelak Dur, the tower. Also is going to be a TN 15. Okay, so it looks like, so I think I've got it figured out. Now the question I have for you guys, and it's sort of up to you. You guys can play at this however you want. Like, do you want to go to Othringol while they're doing their thing and then come back and then figure it out? Do you want to send them out and then wait to see how they do? Or is this they're going to do their thing, you're going to go do your thing, and then we'll reconvene in a couple days and see how everyone did kind of do?
Yeah, like the joint
That's
effort.
what I
Everyone
was
at
thinking.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we might give them sort of a couple steps of like, you're going to do one thing right now, but if we die, then like, here's the thing you'll do
Okay.
after that.
All right.
Could I get a bit of clarification on their bonus dice?
Okay,
So like,
bring it.
for instance, you said the dwarves will get an extra bonus die in Grom. So that would be like 2 bonus die and a D12, right?
Yeah, I am more than open to hearing arguments for why certain groups might get benefits to certain tasks. So like dwarves going and doing something in caves, that just sort of makes sense. So I'm perfectly fine with giving them a bonus die on top of their whatever they're getting from their features. So if you guys want to make the case for stuff, just let me know. So I am fine with so if we're doing like the Mount Graham stuff, for instance, you're getting a D12 because everything's going to be a D12. Then you're getting plus 1d6 because of the dwarves, plus 1d6 because of the of Tharbad, plus another 1d6 because you're sending dwarves to a mountain, is what we're saying. So right now they're rolling 1d12 plus 3d6s to try to accomplish this task. You're welcome to obviously use audience purchases and stuff like normal. If you wanted to do certain things, you're welcome to dedicate that. But that's where you guys would be at right now.
Right. My thought, not to get too metagamey with this, is for instance, like the Rangers going to Kelek Door, they'll likely get 1 bonus die, and it's TN 15. That's going to be very likely that they'll fail then.
Unless you audience dice it up, yeah.
Unless we audience dice. So like we might want to consider focusing our forces a bit more than we are now, just because we don't want to lose people right away.
That makes sense. So then maybe we'll have the Rangers also continue to focus on Mount Grom.
Or we send them with the Oathbreakers so that we're sending 2 groups to 2 different locations.
Gotcha.
So 4 groups
Makes sense.
to 2.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay. I will switch that up. So they're going to Hillfolk as well. All right. So then I've got Mount Grom. We've got 2 groups. Then we've got Moramin Terras.
So
And
that
I'm
does that
pretty
mean
sure that
no
just means
one's going?
Dark Castle. I think that's all that really means. I don't know.
Not at this time.
No one's going to Kelek Door right now. We could send both groups to Kelek Door instead of Taras, but I'm
I
just
think
thinking
Taras is the way to go. That's what I was worried about, that nobody was going to Taras. I think
if they get
Taras is
2
good.
D6s and then a D12, that's going to be an average of, what is that, 7.5 plus 7? That's 14.5. So they're technically just under the target of 15, like on average. That's like a
And then
50%
we can
chance
throw an
already with
audience.
those 2 groups.
that way.
So if we're sending 1 group to a TN 15, they're likely not going to make it.
Got it, yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
I've got two groups. I've got the Rangers and your Oathbreaker dwarves are going to Molamin Terras to scout out what's going on with the hill folk. I've got the Dunlin dwarves and the Tharbad group. They're headed to Mount Gram to potentially sabotage what's actually going on in there. And so because they're specifically doing a task that's suited environmentally, they get a bonus die for that. So right now they're rolling D12 plus 3D6 to try to hit an 18, whereas the other group is rolling a D12 plus 2D6 to try to hit a 15. The elves that are defending the base, they're fine. It's just a D12, or excuse me, just a target number of 12. So that's kind of where we're at. And then the Forlorn elves are going with you. Okay?
All right.
Okay. So, do you guys... I want to get these rolls, because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, since you guys are going to specifically go to Othrengul, I'm going to roll. I want you guys to tell me how much you want to invest in terms of audience dice, and I'm going to roll it. And I'll narrate what happens when you guys get back from Othrengul, so you won't actually know until you in the story return from your own task, and then we'll see what happens. So how much would you want to give to the folks going to Mount Grom?
How many audience dice do we have, Melissa?
I was just gonna
We
ask.
Quite a
We
bit.
have absolutely plenty.
Yep.
Okay.
I would say narratively, we want an abundance of caution to start with. So I would say we just pump them up as much as we can right now.
Remember,
if you guys are okay with that.
You can do 5 dice to get a favored roll. So you can get them two feet die, taking the favored if you wanted to spend 5 audience boost, or you can just give them extra d6s.
Yeah,
What
5
is
for
it?
favorite
7
sounds good.
total we can spend for like 2 extra d6s, or is it 6 total?
Yeah,
I think it's 7 because it's 5 for
7.
the favored and then 2 for 2
For an
more.
extra D6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you guys be okay spending 7 on both of those groups going out, and then maybe 2 extra dice on the group staying here? That's 16 dice total. I know that's a lot, but
Yeah, that's
you know,
nice.
I'm
we
Like,
start
okay.
some management game
I'm
now too.
okay
good.
with that.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, keep track of that, Melissa. I'm going to put
I
little
got it.
stars by my stuff so I know that they're going to be rolling it favored, and then extra d6s.
So
for
favored
the-
+2, favored +2, and then just +2.
Okay, I got it.
In here.
All right. All right. Well, since you guys aren't waiting around, you guys are going off to take care of your own tasks. We'll say that there was a very long strategic session. There was a lot of discussion, and like I know that we were doing that kind of out of character, but we can probably envision a montage of us doing that in character, where people are talking about this, and the Rangers are saying, you know, we should go to Kellic Door, but then part if you come up with like, we shouldn't split our forces so much, you should reinforce with this, and then like the Tharbad folks are be like you know what's it called, Thorovim and Thebe, like they all know each other, they work well together, like, so you can see that there's a lot of that jockeying kind of going back and forth. The only group that seems to be very resistant by the end to what they're doing are the Rivendell elves, as Elro here is like, you want us to wait here and just babysit the horses? This is the task that you have set the sons of Elrond.
You have the most important task of all. If there is any sort of trouble with anyone else, you will be the first to hear, and you will be the ones coming to their rescue. It's a dangerous land, and we don't know which forces are going to the most danger. We need you to be ready and capable to save whoever finds themselves in over their heads.
You need to know the details of everything that everyone else is doing so that you can come in as needed.
Daggett, you're going to roll a check. You're going to get a bonus here from Arinial to see if you can convince them not to be unhappy. Persuade, I think, is what it sounded like. So roll a persuade, get a +1 from Arinial. This definitely, I think, is Daggett's strong suit. So this shouldn't be too difficult.
And my stone necklace will actually light up as well as I spend a hope for a magic success here.
Okay.
That is just 1 success plus the magic success. I rolled 22 over 15.
You see the twins step away for a moment, very animate, like they're very animated in their discussion with one another. You see Curador, their friend, a smith that you've heard, and their fourth elf come up, and they're all kind of talking, and you can definitely tell that they are arguing some, and you're not entirely sure exactly what they're saying, but eventually Elohir and Eladin will return. It's rare that I speak to a dwarf who has such wisdom, but you, in fact, have provided it. We are not happy with the task that you have assigned us, but that does not mean we will not follow it through to the best of our ability. When you have completed your task in Othrengul, and our friends from Forland as well, the camp will be here for you, and rest assured that should our rangers and our dwarves heading off in these more adventurous tasks need reinforcement, we will provide it. However, they get very close at this point to you, Daggett. You will give us something of greater import when you return. Is that
I would not
understood?
want your skills to go to waste, of course.
We are agreed. Kind of nod at that point. They whip around. Their hair goes flurrying in the wind as their anger goes with it.
I go over to Floy. Are elves always so haughty? Annoying.
You should have met Soren there.
I really don't want to if he's like them.
Okay. That was another one of those classic long one-liners that just pop out of nowhere. They're just so good. Okay. So goodbyes are said, and everyone kind of goes off, venturing in different directions. We see a group heading southwesternly towards Mordamin Taras. We see a group headed southeasternly, almost back the way you came to Mount Gram. And we see you all traveling northeasternly into the frigid, looming mountains of Angmar. Now, we're not doing journey rules once we get into Angmar, as I've already explained to the players. We're going to do this more like a skill endeavor. They know effectively how this is going to work, but just to kind of give you all that are listening or watching an idea of how we're handling this. I think of Angmar as a very stark and dangerous place. Dangerous because it is filled with the undead, or the dead, I should say, filled with orcs and goblins, filled with creatures from the Forodwit, filled with just environmental hazards themselves. Rain, sleet, ice, fog, getting lost in a avalanche or falling in a crevice. There's so many things that you could potentially encounter. So we're going to treat any sort of travel across Angmar to be a skill endeavor of some kind. Now, Othrengul, actually, if some of you have been there before, is up in the mountains. You actually had to climb, and it was an arduous travel. And so we are going to consider that to be an arduous skill endeavor. Because you all are in such outnumbered territory, we're going to, the time limit of this is going to be 7. So effectively, we're going to be doing a skill endeavor that has a difficulty of 9, a time limit of 7, and then we have some special rules that might pop up if you guys run out of time. The skills that I think are best suited for this: Explore, Stealth, and Athletics. Athletics is just pure brute strength and endurance. Explore, finding clever paths and efficiency. Stealth, avoiding the potential denizens of Angmar. So all of those things those are the skills that are of ideal use for such a task. Others can be considered, but they will be penalized in some particular way. If any of you roll an Eye of Sauron, and I know that all of you decide not to and say you roll Gandy's instead, but if any of you roll an Eye of Sauron, please let me know, as some wonderful and amazing things might happen. So
I rolled a Sauron already today.
you rolled 2 of them, I saw in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot it was favored. They both came up Sauron.
Okay. So as we see all of you and the Rivendell elves, and one of you per round of this, because everyone's got to roll a check before. This is how I'm running it. This is not rules as written. This is how I'm running it. Before anyone can roll a second, everyone has to at least roll roll one check. One of you can get the elves to help you, since you only have one group with you. So as you emerge from the burn, from the kind of hidden locale where your camp has been set up. You can see waving in some fashion from high above, and these gnarled trees. You can see what you believe is that Elro here? Is that Eladin? It's hard to tell. But they kind of give you the nod that at least the immediate coast is clear, and you can leave your staging ground without concern of drawing attention to it. And off you set northeasternly as the sleet and the rain begin to fall. Who takes the lead in pushing through Angmar?
Take first go.
All right, Floyd, describe what you're doing.
Yes, athletics. I'll be the first to lead, going up mountains, hills, helping everyone from behind me as much as I can. Pretty much
All right.
brute forcing our way through.
Absolutely. Give it a roll. And let me know how you do.
Could Gilly
Yeah.
be covering our tracks so nobody can follow back to our camp while Floy leads the way?
You certainly can. Yeah. Yeah. That's so if you want to support or assist him, that essentially is that what you're asking to do here? Like I don't know if that's
I'm because either as my own role next or something, like a stealth role or something, or like assisting as in like helping hide our tracks as he leads the way, whichever.
I mean, you can do that. This is more like I'm treating this more as your guys are trying to find ways to progress ahead as opposed to worry about what's behind. I
Got
kinda
it.
want-
Okay.
Think of things you can do to push forward. Okay, Floyd, how did you do?
Yes, 23, great success.
Great success. So 2 success. So success plus a bonus. All right. So it's going to reduce difficulty down to 7, time down to 6. So Floyd, the little area that you found was definitely on. I mean, like it is the nicest patch of land that you have seen in your multiple trips now to Angmar, and it is not a particularly attractive place to begin with. But the hills you think have eroded a bit. Maybe it's because the stream cutting through, maybe it just happens to catch wind at the right angle as it swings down from the mountains above. Because when you are not more than 2 miles away from your camp, everything around you turns ragged and rigid. You can see there are cracks long and winding in the ground a few times. 1 or 2 of you lose your footing and nearly fall down a 20-foot fissure in the ground and have to be fetched and pulled back up. Also, you notice that you are not alone as you're traversing this ground. And it's, for most of the day, you can tell that there's something in the sky. You can see it. You can see shadows here and there kind of pop up in some of the low-hanging clouds that waft down from the mountains. It's not a singular creature. Perhaps it's more of those things that were attacking you at Nadil's homestead, and you're not sure, but you see shadows above, but you're able at times when it becomes most concerning to pull the folks in your group into a cleft or hide beneath an overhang, something like that. A couple times as you're pushing up a hill, it crumbles, an avalanche comes down, and you have to effectively sit there with shield or sit there with whatever you can find to just sort of break this icy deluge that comes down. But you're able a few times to bypass what looks like scouting parties, and you can see that there are some well armored and well equipped orcs with these large white wolves, bigger than any wargs that you all have fought to the south, much like the ones that you saw at Mount Graham, and they are moving with great rigidity, with great formation, like it's surprising in some way. But again, you're taking these paths, you're kind of going up these hills, you're avoiding some of the obvious routes, and you're able to make some progress. Now, who would like to go next? Who would like to take over? You managed to avoid any major dangers.
Yeah, Daggett, as everyone knows, likes to be stealthy. And he prepared for this journey by painting his armor darker so that it wouldn't reflect as much, by making sure to pad it so it wouldn't be as loud. And I think he would like to range about a bit ahead and apart from the group, looking for any sort of dangers that would come up to guide them away. Like you said, just making sure that we don't run into any other denizens on our way there. If I could stealth about.
Yes, go right ahead. Yeah.
And can I use
sounds
my
good.
useful item?
Yes, absolutely. That is what they are for.
Oh, that was a bad roll, but I think I just made it. 17 over 15. One
Okay.
success.
Ooh.
One success. Okay. And the reason you barely made it is because is an extraordinarily close call. As at one point, you see traversing from the south, coming down a slope that you think kind of maybe southeastish, not in the direction of Mount Graham, maybe even more eastwardly. You just see this very kind of white ridge, white slope, and you don't even notice that there is a white furred creature that is not unlike the creature that you all buried at the bottom of a mine shaft where your brother and Rollin now call home. The fur is of different color, but the size and the ferocity, and it isn't until it's probably about 15 yards from you that you actually notice that some of the fur around its mouth is sodden with blood. Its eyes as well carry that same color. And you notice that it's not alone, as riding atop it, almost hidden atop it, is some kind of troll. You would peg it as a troll because it's got this kind of blue tinted skin in some ways. Almost looks like it's been frozen in and of itself. And as you're getting very close, you have to quickly duck down. And while you're sure you weren't seen, pull your arm kind of up and you take a whiff of your beard and you realize you are giving off quite an odor. You hear the sounds of this creature sniffing around. You feel like their hooves or their paws just kind of stomping around, shaking. It's not unlike that moment in the Fellowship where the Nazgul are kind of just swooping across the path, and the hobbits are kind of hiding in the hovel underneath. You feel your weapon almost like sliding out of where it holds, like almost as if it has this idea of its own, and you have to quickly grab it. It's then that you hear a voice. Arr! And you realize it's the troll. And then a little further away, you hear another, "Hi!" And the rest of you are now coming up over a ridge looking for where Daggett might have gone. You see there are 3 of these snow trolls riding the backs of these massive bear-like ursine beasts. And Gilly, with your keen eyes, you can see there is Daggett in this little nook beneath a ridge, as one of those bears is standing atop it, and it's not, and you can see its muzzle like it's actually smelled something. And you see little drips of dirt and rocks begin to fall, sprinkle down Daggett's beard. And for a moment, you think maybe this is it. You're about to engage. But then they continue to descend down this ridge, and they start venturing what looks like down and around and kind of sloping southeastwardly for a bit. This is the first time you've seen such large creatures atop these beasts before, but you have seen those beasts. They are far better trained, those beasts were, than the one that Iriniel saw with Marimben and the one that you all fought in the mines in the Blue Mountains. These were trained and allowed to be ridden. Several heartbeats pass until you realize that they have gone far enough away from you that you guys could once more breathe. And Daggett, you're able to come out from where you were hiding.
It's far too close for comfort. We need to group back up and continue.
Far too close. I'm the one who got slobber in their beard.
You did. You might want to do something about the way that you do not fit into the odor of the landscape.
Are you telling me I smell?
I'm just telling you that you smell differently. Don't you do things with the beard and whatnot that, just roll around in dirt a little bit?
I wash my beard. What do things with the
The scent of soap is not the scent of dirt.
Put that on a
You're
bumper
saying
sticker.
that Daggit's just flustered now, frustrated that his beard and scent are being insulted. He just had a bear beast like crawl over him, and he just starts like grumbling angrily to himself.
At a certain point, Balavan will come up. Are you quite finished? Can we continue with our task? And it doesn't even wait for your answer. He just plunges northward. Who would like to take up the next mantle? Who would like to go next? 6 difficulty, 5 time limit.
Can I get Tara to go with athletics?
Yes, absolutely. You can give it a roll, describe what you're doing, or vice versa, however you want to handle it.
We're going up a mountain, or can you describe the landscape
this
a little
point,
bit for me?
Between Daggett and Floy, pushing out from the burn, kind of going up the foothills of Angmar, yeah, you are actually starting to properly climb. And in some cases, it's sheer cliff wall that you're climbing up. You're looking for signs of paths, but once or twice you start veering up what looks like a goat path, only to have it crumble and you have to return back and start again. So it is becoming much more difficult of a climb now. This is
In that
hours
case,
and days. Yeah.
I think the I think the athletics check, like the brute force and the strength, really is just finding handholds and footholds that are strong enough to bear the weight, and basically kind of pushing down as hard as I can as I climb up to see if it crumbles beneath me.
We see another reference. We see Rings of Power moment in the very beginning where Galadriel and the other elves are climbing up a sheer cliff face and Angmar near the forward with. And Taraneth, maybe you have like a rope tied to some of your packs and belongings of the, as you're moving up here and there, you have to reach down and kind of give maybe Gilly or Riniel or one of the elves kind of a hand to reach another one. And it is a very slow process as you're climbing up. You are getting pelted by rain and sleet and cold wind. Give us the athletics test and let me know how you do.
Okay, I'd like to use one audience type, please.
Sure.
Okay.
And that is a 24 with 1 6.
Okay, so that's 2 successes on that. So we are now down to 4 difficulty with 4 time limit left. You managed to climb for, it must have been hours. Foy originally led you out for maybe half a day. Eventually you kind of camped. Daggett took the lead in the morning, finding a path forward. Later that afternoon, Taraneth, as the dwarves are kind of catching their breath, as Gilly and Eriniel are keeping sure that no one is following them, you kind of take the lead as you start climbing up this wall. And the mountains themselves, they look different than when you were last here, because the last time the rest of you were here, it was wintertime. So they're not as coated and covered, and you can see that there's the bones of them, the rock of them is far more pronounced in some ways, which isn't to say that ice still doesn't exist. There is. And every now and then your hands slip, you see a chunk of the wall fall on you, and something falls from above. More and more, those of you with keen ears or with high awareness skills, you hear the sounds of crunching above you. And a few times you look up and something falls in like this patch of earth. And then that crunching goes away, and you're not sure if it was just the earth moving or if there was a creature stalking these mountain walls as well. But we'll say Taraneth leads maybe about a 4-hour climb. And much of that is pure vertical. You take breaks along the way. You find these little caves and crannies where you can breathe and get water and sit. And you look down and realize you've barely climbed at all. Like, that's how long this takes. But nonetheless, you continue to progress. No one is harmed. And you think, but are not confident, that you have not been noticed yet. Those of you who have familiarity with Othringul, you do know that the closer you got to that place, the stranger things became. Like, there was some sort of sense of magic imbued in the stones here, as if whatever was going on within that subterranean, that mountainside fortress, somehow was bleeding out into the earth itself, where almost kind of seemed like the earth around you, the environment, was trying to give away your position to various creatures. So I'll turn to Arinio or to Gilly Kettlegrass. Who wants to take up the next task?
Maybe Gilly will, especially considering that we had concerns that there was a creature nearby. She'll kind of lead us to be more stealthy along the way up.
Okay, sounds good. Absolutely. Give us that stealth roll. Maybe one of the reasons you took that vertical climb was because it led to a little bit more of a gradual ascent. It's still like the mountain doesn't want to be climbed. It's like it's trying to push you off at every step of the way, and you have to cling to it with dear life, whether it's with your hands, your feet, your mountain climbing equipment, whatever it could possibly be. But Gilly, you more than once hear the sounds of that crunching and crackling. A couple times maybe you think it's that whatever haunting that's been ringing in your ears since you left Sorendir. Maybe it's that. But then you see a chunk of earth fall from above and a chunk of earth fall from above, and you realize, no, this is actually happening. This isn't just in your head. There is crackling happening around you.
Yeah.
How'd you do?
Great success.
Okay. Very nice. At a certain point, Gilly, as you're climbing up, you're probably 2/3 of the way up the mountain. It's more of a base calculation than it is any sign of familiarity. Like, you're not finding the same paths you took before. But what you do see is a creature that you saw before. As you see a massive white and blue drake that is perched atop an edifice about 100 feet above your head right now. You see it extend these arms, which is probably in itself maybe 30 or more feet wide, not wings, but webbing between them. And you can see that it's like gnawing on something as it does. And as you're watching, this leg falls and just falls, this bloody, massive leg. And as your eyes are watching it, as the rest of you watch this fall, you see as this creature leaps off the cliff and, like a dive bomb, goes flying down after it. And just as it looks like it's about to kind of crash in to the wall, crash into the ground below you, it grabs that fallen leg midair in this long mouth, and it just curves and kind of glides down to the ground. You see this huge cut in the earth where it lands. You see a rupture of snow and ice and rock where it lands itself, and it kind of flings it around like a dog playing with its food, and crunch and crunch. And where it was 100 feet above you, it is now 100 feet below you on a ledge below. You can see it stops, and it kind of starts looking around. To the left, to the right, and then you see it turn, this huge tail sweeping across the ground. You can see there's spikes and the ridge going up the back a ways. The scales are glittering in some way as you look down. There's no light, yet it somehow seems to. And these pale eyes that you can see from a distance, Gilly, with your keen vision, and it is staring directly up at where all of you are currently crouched and hidden within a cleft of this wall. And it's watching and looking. Its head tilts to the side like a dog trying to calculate something. then its head whips around in a different direction, and you see it scampering off as if it didn't see you.
This is not the first time that Gilly has been put in a terribly close situation with this creature.
It's not gonna be the last either.
No. And I presume maybe we're all kind of hidden amongst the snow or whatever slush
Something
is
like that.
left. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gilly even waits even after she witnessed it, a beat or two after it's left, before she motions that we should continue.
And Aurelio, I think you're the last to go. How are you contributing for this possibly last leg? Possibly not. 2 difficulty, 3 time limit left.
So I would say I'm gonna not necessarily go with my best thing, but I'm gonna try explore because it seems like okay, we kind of got ourselves hidden and now we need to kind of find our way back to the path again. So that's what she is going to. And has anyone actually made use of Balavan or the elves?
Not yet.
Okay. And I'm the last one in the round.
Okay. They haven't been having as much of trouble climbing up. As you can see, they are very, very balanced, very quick in their movements. They're very stealthy as well, as you see them with their slenderness disappear in this little crack and crevice in the wall here and there. And then when you do manage to find a path, this like elevation path, like almost rocky steps, they move up with great alacrity. And the wind itself, like it doesn't really seem to bother them as much. Their eyes continue to look forward and forward as ice and rock and dirt smash against their faces and their cheeks. As you and Balavan step forward, he looks over to you. And then look up. Do you know the rest of the way, Ranger?
We do not appear to be taking the same path, but I do know where we need to go. We will only stop.
Was it here
as
where you
we need
abandoned my friend? Or was it further down? Or closer?
to. And I'll point in the general direction. Just a bit that way.
I will defer to your experience, Ranger, but let's move quickly before that creature returns.
Your eyes are quite useful for this.
Okay. Give us that explorer. Get a +1 d6 for Balavan's help. We'll see if you can find a path up. You do well enough, you actually could take us straight into Authringle, right up to the edge, I should say.
Doing math, I need to roll the +1. That is an extraordinary success. That is 2 6s. And even though I only had a 4 on my d12, the math still worked out.
Okay. So as your eyes are peering about, and what you can't see, Balavan's describing to you. And he would say, I see a small ridge. I see what looks like an obelisk, perhaps. 100 yards, perhaps 200 above. There is yet another one of these ledges that goes out twice as far. And then he's kind of describing, and you realize as he starts to describe this ledge, you remember it. You remember that the entrance to Authringle was on a plateau of sorts that extended out northwesternly from the side of one of the mountains of Angmar. And you remember that there was this outcropping of rock atop of it, that you found this runed door within. And as he's describing it, you know it to be, that's it, that's the entrance to Authringle. He's describing more and more the path that you see and that he sees, and the two of you together are able to essentially trailblaze. And you find a not difficult path up, relatively speaking, compared to the dangers of a vertical climb, the dangers of this drake nearly detecting you. Like, this last leg is not so difficult. However, along the way, you are passing like into the mountain and then out again and then in, like you're weaving between these very shallow caves. And once or twice, Eryniel, you almost have to do a double take as you see like a small chunk of rock or ice on the interior of a cave. Maybe the light catches it just a little bit strangely, and you swear you see a face looking out at you. And you hear the sort of familiar whispers every time you step into this interior portion of the shallow cave that kind of connects through to a different side of the mountain. You hear that same sound, that same series of whispers. But then when you stop and you look more closely, you realize it is not a face. I mean, not really, not the way that the room within Othran Gol was, which were almost carved artistically. Here, it's just, sure, you can maybe see that, but no elf or dwarf or any other person with any craftsmanship would ever describe that as artistic, as an actual representation. You pass out into the wind once more. You are pelted with more snow and ice, and you weave through once more into another one of these small, shallow, these kind of shallow clefts. You see on the ground a pile of wet bones, broken, covered in blood. What you imagine was that creature that Drake's lunge. Push past it once more. You don't see it. And then all of you are once more on a very flat, unnaturally so, plateau. And now at this point in time, with the fact that it's not actually winter, your feet aren't sinking between snow. You hear the sounds of your footsteps echoing across this in some way. You move over towards this outcropping. And for the second time, you see standing carved into the side of the mountain, this outcropping staring westward. And as you look west, you can see more mountains. You can see lightning in the sky. You see the door to Othran Gol, which I still actually have. So I'm going to share it with you all, with those of you. Very narrow, very tall. These beautiful runes, metallic of some kind. It's covered in grime and ice, and it stands before you. What do you do?
And Eryniel and Balavan have not shared many pleasantries, but when I sort of come up to this area, Eryniel will sort of just kind of tug on the side of his cloak and just sort of stop. And she just feels the weight, and she sort of gets these flashbacks almost to sort of the last time she saw Maribem and the wall of faces that she's seen so many times in the nightmares that kept repeating and kept repeating. And so she almost sort of has to steel herself for a second as she just sort of kind of grasps his cloak for a second. And then she kind of takes a deep breath. We have found what we came for.
Balavan says, "No, we have not. This is just a door. Sorendir might lie within, or at the very least an answer to what befell him. If not finished anything yet, steel yourself. There's work to be done."
Indeed. And she'll kind of turn to the rest of the fellowship and just sort of that look of knowing of those that have seen the door before.
Just like I remember.
Daggett. Go ahead, sorry.
I'll see. There's still activity around. People are still going through it.
No, I mean, it's closed. You don't see anyone guarding it. And last time you were here, you never saw anyone come and go from it. You all actually sat around for a little while trying to figure out how to enter it, and no one really chased you out. The only creatures you really fought or encountered inside were the dead, specters, ghosts, undead, that massive creature atop the elk that was dragging the dead behind them, the birds as well. But you've never seen anyone come and go from it other than yourselves. This stands before you.
Gilly does have kind of like almost these like strips of cloth, like the size of a bandana that she's prepared, that she hands out to everyone and instructs to cover their face before we do enter and go down there, and explains again,
Sure.
goes over how the specters would burst into dust.
When you try to hand it to Amdrim, you look around and you realize he's not standing next to you all, but you see him on the edge of the plateau, looking not towards Othringol, not towards the entrance, but away, like northwesternly. And he's just kind of lingering there. And when you come up to hand it to them, he doesn't immediately respond. And after a moment, you see him sort of startling. I'm sorry, Miss Kettlegrass. Were you saying something to me?
Yeah, yes. I need you to wear this when we enter.
Oh, of course.
Have you been here before?
And he looks, and his eyebrows kind of furrow. And he looks at you, and he says, "I." Look of terror, almost. I cannot recall. Have I? And he just kind of looks out again, like over this massive drop. You can't even see the ground as this mist forms, and you can't really see how far, but there's this horrible rocky slope deep below where this plateau extends out from the mountain. The ridge continues in this northwesternly fashion. Storm clouds on the horizon, darkening the sky, occasional violent streaks of lightning. Somewhere out there might be Cardoom, you're not sure. But he takes the mask and he ties it deftly. I shall follow you, Mr. Kettlegrass.
And Gilly does offer a hand and does lead him away from the ledge.
Okay. Do you all remember how to open this door?
Tara, have a
Daggett.
quick word with Balvan. Sorry, Dag, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, since he hasn't been here, he would be very interested in like the actual engineering of the door, looking at it for the first time.
Sure.
I know we've looked, the rest of the group has looked at it before. He probably wouldn't have heard how they got in, but like as he's looking, Steven is asking this more than Daggett, would there be like any dried blood on there or any remnants of that?
There is definitely some discoloration to various grooves on the door. Nothing recent. Doesn't look like anyone has... I'd imagine you probably have all conversed at some point about this thing and how you kind of cut your palm, you feed your blood to it, and somehow that creates a mechanism. You don't see any mechanism, though, Daggett. You're not really sure. You can peer into the grooves themselves, but you're not sure exactly how it functions.
I think Daggett would just spend some time really studying, trying to, like, obviously, I don't think he'd be able to understand, but he would be trying to figure out the mechanics behind it, if not magic.
Yeah. I would say without really kind of getting into the rock outcropping, into the doorway, into whatever mechanism might exist below the floor and beyond the door, there's probably not much you can glean from here. If you were to try to like deconstruct it at some point, that could probably lead to some more enlightenment, but definitely magic is somehow involved.
Definitely not something you'd want to do now. He wouldn't want to even touch it yet.
Okay. Tara, you were going to say something.
Yeah, can Tara have a quick word with Balvan?
It would have to be very quick as he is standing at the door getting ready to cut his hand.
That's fine. Before he does, I will put a hand on his shoulder and kind of forcefully I'm insisting on having a hurt and being physical about it.
Really?
Yeah.
If that's the case, he whirls around and he puts a knife at your throat.
Okay.
We've been allies to this point. My friend
Put
my
the knife
love.
down.
is inside.
The knife down.
You take your hand off me. This
Okay, so-
instant.
She takes her hand off him.
He
Put
lowers the knife.
down. You seem to be under the mistaken impression that you are the only one who cares that Sorndi has been left. I have joined this fellowship very recently, and I can tell you that Sorndi's absence is looming, to say the least, and nobody blames themselves more than Neverneal. It is not my place to tell you how to grieve and
Then
how
why
to,
are you doing it now? We
because I
here
need
are at the
you to
doorstep
be
of this place and
competent.
you want to talk to me.
I need
You want to talk. You want to converse. You, petty thing who has lived a blink of my life, will tell me how to behave. I shall listen to it no longer. If you
Tara's
wish
face is
my
very
aid.
disdainful at this. Like she is visibly disgusted.
Step
the
away.
outburst.
I care not for your words. Cuts his hand, smashes it against the door. And you watch as the blood begins to spread out in a non-gravitational manner, feeds into the grooves. And you watch the door begin to grind open.
Okay.
And the door to Othran Gul is once more open. Balavan, without hesitation, plunges inside. Gilly, are you holding on to Amdrim's hand?
I am, yeah.
He crumbles to the ground. The other Forland elves crumble to the ground. And that
Does
is where we're going
Balavan
to end.
as well?
Nope. He plunges down underneath, and that's where we're going to end.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
Oh, God.
Just happened.
I mean, stuff.
I can't blame him, though.
no!
Daggett just looks at Floy. Elves, am I right?
More left to do.
Oh my god.
Oh wow.
Oh
I
man,
mean-
that was great.
I said they were going with you. I didn't say they were going to help.
No,
No,
this is,
no.
no part of my reaction should be taken as a complaint.
Sorry, I'm making a note for myself for next time.
Oh, goodness.
Boy. Okay. And then, okay, all set. All right, so that is the end of tonight. We will be back in a week to plunge once more into the depths of Othran Gul to deal with the fallout of what just happened.
Yes.
Rage overtaking Balavan, and then the rest of the Forlorn elves collapsing in front of your eyes. Okay, let's see.
Can you just remind me how many of them there are?
Sure. There are.
Hold on,
6 total.
Six.
total.
Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you.
So
One
Balavan
now.
is plunged down.
One now.
The other 5 have all fallen around you.
Okay.
Oh goodness.
I'm so glad I pulled Amdrin from the fucking cliff edge.
That's
Jesus
so
Christ.
cool that you were like holding on to him and leading him back when that happened. That was like perfect.
That
He was going to
awesome.
fall off the cliff, by the way. Like, I was
my
going to have him fall off
God.
the cliff. I was just going to have
I'm
him to
so
sort of
glad
look
you
back
went and got him.
and then collapse. Okay, yeah. There are pros and cons to bringing the Forlorn elves back to a place in which the Forlorn elves were messed with. So yeah, this is gonna be good. All right,
Yeah,
so
like you
let's-
said, they would have come no matter
Oh,
what.
they were coming no matter what,
yeah.
they They were coming no matter what. Balavan especially. I have plans. Okay, so then next time,
Confirming the relationship right here, right now hurts.
Steven said I can do whatever I want, so I'm doing
It's true.
it.
Fair game.
Yeah. Okay. I like the inversion too of like everyone else like, okay, caution, take your time. And like Elf, who's been alive for thousands of years, is like, get the fuck off me. Like my man is down there. Shut up.
I was like,
and
wait,
off he goes.
we just learned something we didn't know.
We were hinting at it here and there, so I
Gilly
feel like
knew.
why not?
Gilly knew.
Yeah. Okay.
Iridial was.
I
who else
assume
did
they
I-
were very close. I had no
They're
idea they
extremely
were
close.
romantic.
I mean, like, we haven't really defined it too much, but like they definitely had a very close relationship. All right, so let's get on out of here. What's next? Monday is the next time we're gonna be streaming something. Maybe Call of Cthulhu, maybe something else. Don't really know. Tuesday, Steven, what do we got going on?
Forbidden Lands. The party has just arrived at the base of a volcano at the Orc homelands, and there is an army of wolf Vikings at their doorsteps. So we're gonna find out how that resolves.
Say Wolf Viking? Oh, that's right. Yeah, 'cause
Wolfkin
they're
Vikings.
Wolfkins,
Yeah, Reavers.
I was like, I'm thinking of like actual wolves as Vikings, like
Basically, yeah.
shield wall or something. Okay. Thursday, we've got some Die, the role playing game. Friday, we've got what do we got next Friday? Conan. I think is up. If you haven't yet followed the channel, please do. Twitch.tv/Lollygaggers. If you're watching this later, hop on over to Twitch. Give us a follow. And if you wouldn't mind, also check out the YouTube page, Adventures in Lollygagging. Give us a subscribe there. It'd be great. We've got all sorts of games that we've been playing for the past couple of years over there. So if you don't like One Ring, that sucks. But maybe there's something else there that you might like instead. So other than that, have a great rest of your weekend. Welcome back and to Author and Goal, and we'll see the rest of it next time. So bye-bye.